My name is Malla Haridat. I'm a business coach and speaker, and I have worked for a number of years teaching young people in particular about how to start their own businesses. So this is my life's work, is getting people inspired about starting their own businesses.
Well, that is a beyond perfect fit for Sweet. So I'm so glad we're talking.
Awesome.
And can you talk about your inspiration for starting your company, or if you've had any role models or mentors or still have them?
Sure. So I started my first business by accident when I was 16 years old. It was a complete and total accident. I had a friend who invited me to go to this event at a local hotel. They were giving away free candy. And once they told me that, and $5 for showing up, once they told me free candy, I was like, I'm in, right? Like, I'm totally there. And long story short, I heard this giant sales pitch about investing in getting your own vending machines. And it was an idea that never occurred to me. There was no one in my family that was entrepreneurial, but it hit me that I was going to be going off to college soon. And I loved the idea of I could earn the same amount of money as what I would earn if I were working like an after school job, but in like so many few hours. So through this crazy chain of events, like my family was not rich at all, but through this crazy chain of events, right? I was able to get a couple of machines, started my first business. And the thing that inspired me wasn't the actual vending machines themselves. It was 3 months after I had spent all of my money that I was saving up for like college and stuff like that on these machines. They're in my house, right? Because the company that promises to help you place them all of a sudden magically disappears after they get your money, right? Like they're like, you go figure it out. And my mom is now screaming at me to get these things out the house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I supposed to do like what am I supposed to do? I'm 16 years old. Like I don't know what to do or how to get this. And I just started knocking on doors, no exaggeration. And I was blown away that most people said no, but after I knocked on enough doors, I found places for all of those vending machines. And that idea then sparked of like, hey, wait a minute, like I don't know what I'm doing at all, right? But this thing can work. Like I could legitimately take this idea and get other people interested in it and find a way to make money. And then honestly, that's where I got hooked.
Wow, that is such a cool
That
story.
was the story. That was the
I've
legit story of
never
what happened.
heard anything like it. Wow. Well, clearly, from starting business at 16, I think I might know part of the answer to this question. But what would you tell a girl who feels too young or too inexperienced to start her own company?
The interesting part about it now, as I've definitely much more mature than 16 now, is that I don't know if I would start a business at the age that I'm at now if I hadn't done it back then. And I think that's the thing that's so hard when you're young to really see. But I'll tell you up front, I made every mistake possible with these machines, like every mistake, like lost inventory. I didn't fill the machines up on time. Just like every mistake that you could possibly make, I totally made in with these machines. But the best part about it is that by making the mistakes at a young age, when like it is what it is, you then are able to get people at your age that I can't get now. But at my age, I had people just naturally coming to me and helping me and saying, hey, you're really messing up. This is how you do it.
First of
Stop
all,
messing up so much, right? And I'll just be upfront. As you get older, it's not that people don't want to help, but it's like you're older and people figure you can figure it out for yourself. But now, when you're young, people want to help. They want to get involved. They want to support you. And like, so what? You wind up making mistakes. That's the genius of it, is you do it at a young age, and then that gives you the experience and the confidence as you get older to feel even more confident about doing it. So it's, for me, it's not even a question. Like, start at a young age, mess up completely, and then get the help, and then you know what to do better.
right. And I didn't even think about this before, but so many women have said that teenagers can be at an advantage, like you said, with people helping them, but also, they're kind of in the know with technology and they see what's coming in the future.
Exactly. Exactly. You're when you're the thing that I had as an advantage then, right? Like I could probably sell way better as an adult having my own business now than I did back then as a teenager, right? But here was the thing. people would listen to me much quicker when I was a teenager because I'm a teen, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't even have to have a perfect sales script. Like I didn't know what I was saying to get those machines in. Like I legit didn't. But people gave me the time of day. And I think you don't realize when you're young how much that you actually have strengths, right? Like you have assets. To your exact point, you see the world differently in a way that I think people were very curious, right? They were just interested, to your point of like, you understand technology differently, you understand business differently, and so they're willing to give you that benefit of the doubt to support you. And I also think that they're just willing to, they see someone that's young, that's ambitious, they want to help. People really genuinely want to help. So run with it. I think it's the best time ever to start a business.
Definitely. I cannot agree more. And I hope all the girls who watch this realize that. 'Cause it's so
Totally.
so when a girl is ready to start her company, or she thinks she hopes she is, what do you think the most important first step is?
Sure. So the first step is a critical one. And it was so exciting to hear your story and to hear so many young girls really adapt this story. It's not coming up with the greatest idea. It's first talking to people that you think that you want to be able to sell to, listening to what are the problems they're having, what are the pain points that they're dealing with, what are some of the challenges that they're dealing with. Because if you worry about coming up with the perfect idea, right, or making sure that it looks polished and beautiful, you may totally be off the mark as to what people really need, right?
Yeah.
So as a quick example with the vending machines, when I started trying to get them out there, what I didn't realize, and it only happened because I just started talking to people and talking to people, is that businesses were looking for a way to help their employees during snack breaks where they didn't want their employees to leave the office for a few hours, but just, you want a Hershey bar, you want like some snacks. And so it was a win-win for the companies because now instead of their employee taking like a 5 hour lunch break, right? They just go into the kitchen now and they have this opportunity to get something to like, to help out with the sugar cravings. And I only learned that through just going out and talking to businesses about what they needed. And I think that is really where, as a young person, you have a huge advantage because you're going to have an eye that's very different than most adults do. And that's where the great business ideas come from because you'll see things that other people won't see. And that's a win. That's a total win.
100%. And what would you say are the top three steps, or the top three characteristics, I should say, of a successful entrepreneur?
Sure. So, first characteristic, and it goes along with that first step, is you have to be willing to listen to what other people are saying. And that one's sometimes hard because you may have an idea of how you want to solve the problem already, but I'm going to just encourage you to just listen, just take in all their feedback, take in all the ideas of what they're really saying so that you can build something that really, really suits what they have. The second one is you have to be willing, and you don't have to be good at it, but just at least willing to take risks, right? So we encourage entrepreneurs in programs that I've worked with to actually go out and interview customers, for example, right? Like to literally go out on the street and talk to people. And you've experienced this, right? Like, and it's can be the scariest thing ever. You don't have to get it right, but you do have to have that willingness to kind of go out and take a risk. And I think over time, what happens is that willingness is going to really, really get easier and easier and easier to make bigger and bigger asks so that, the first time that I worked with a client and, we were talking about this huge contract that they wanted me to work with 200 students and, it's going to be a 6-month program. After having done it so many times with smaller ask and being willing to take risks, then when you get to the big clients and the big contracts, it's a little easier. It's still not, it's not scary, but it's a little easier. I'll say that part to be able to do. So I
Exactly.
think the willingness to take risks and the willingness to really listen to your customers, I think are two of the critical ones that I would recommend.
Well, those are both great. Thank you. Clearly, from your vending machine experience, their ups and downs to entrepreneurship. So, what is the most disappointing or difficult part of entrepreneurship for you?
Sure. I think the hardest part is when you're working hard and you know that you're talking to people, you know that you're marketing your business and you're not bringing the sales in. And you're just trying to find a way to be able to get more coming into the company and you're working, but it's not happening. But I think what's been interesting about that is whereas in when you work in a professional world where things are often guided for you, and the company, you kind of go along with what the company wants to do. I think what I've so appreciated about being an entrepreneur, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, it can be very hard when you're dealing with like low sales, but yet you're out there and you're hustling. The genius I think about it though is that you have the ability to leverage and build a community of other entrepreneurs to help you problem solve, to help you be creative about things, right? Like to help you come up with new ideas. So, I know right now for a lot of entrepreneurs, I've been doing a lot of speaking, and I've been working with different groups right now about specifically how do they navigate right now during COVID? Like, what are they supposed to do if their main source of income doesn't work? And the genius about being an entrepreneur is that you get to really tap into your creative side during those times. So, is it hard? Yes. It's not fun when you go and you look in your bank account and the numbers are not there where you need them to be, right? Like your accountant's yelling at you, your bookkeeper's like, what's going on? But I also think it's, at the same token, it just provides such an amazing opportunity for you to create. So I've had the blessed fortune of watching all of these like virtual programs and virtual opportunities pop up, and experiences really that, like, prior to COVID, nobody would have done these things, right? Like, I mean, even this experience right now of being interviewed where, I think it's going to be the norm now. I think it's amazing that prior to this moment, if we weren't in person, it wouldn't necessarily have been the same experience as what we can actually do. So it's hard, but it's also an opportunity in a weird way.
Definitely. There are always new opportunities if you just look for them.
Totally.
Completely agree. And how do you handle the gender gap as an entrepreneur?
The gender gap is real. It definitely is a big one. I think the two ways that I've handled it is, first is having mentors around me who I both watch what they do and I pay attention to how they sell, how they negotiate. I've been so fortunate to be in on sales calls, for example, or in sales meetings where I just get to sit back and watch and just see the magic happen in front of me. And then it inspires me to think differently, like, well, what do I need to do in my own business? And then I would also say, like, a constant education about what it means to be a woman entrepreneur, and going to different events, finding resources like Sweet, right, where I can now sit and listen to interviews from other women and hear their stories. The gender gap is real, right? And definitely in terms of what women businesses are earning right now in this country, women businesses, depending upon the industry you're in, they're earning about 80 cents to sometimes 60 cents to a man's dollar. Yes, the numbers are real. Like, if you look on, I mean, we could go real deep on this, but I won't go too far. But if you look on, the Federal Reserve has information on this. There's different foundations like the Kauffman Foundation and others that really research a lot of these numbers. And what's crazy is that you could be within the same industry, but a company that is owned primarily by men is making more money. And the big question is why? There's huge conversations about women needing to get more capital to be able to build their businesses and grow larger companies from the beginning. I think the big one for us as women is for us to just start paying attention to it. And then, based upon paying attention to it, what are the strategies that make us as women powerful, that we also have to be willing to question and examine, right? So one of the common challenges that I've often heard from women entrepreneurs that are moms is that they often want to have businesses that fit what they call lifestyle businesses. So it's that, oh, I'm just working just enough so I can take care of my child, and I can also be able to produce this business. But the better question might be to ask, how can you build a business that allows you to be a mom, right? That allows you to spend time being a mom, but maybe you're employing other people in the process. You're not the one doing all the work. And that takes work to think like that. I don't think for a lot of us, we think naturally like that. We like what's comfortable and like what we can kind of see. So, it's mentors. I've had a number of coaches that have really guided me with a lot of this. And then it's working with organizations like Athena, right? Where, I will totally shout out Athena right now. There is a different way of thinking and operating as a woman and as a woman leader that they're pushing the envelope on. You have to do experiences like that because it changes your whole framework of what you think is possible when you see other smart behind, like, ready to take on the world women, and you see how they've actually been able to crack it.
That was such a beyond wise answer.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it's so important to always keep learning and just everything you said. And going off of that, how do you address diversity in your workplace?
Diversity. It's a big, big, big topic. And I just have to give you the biggest virtual hug ever for even asking it in the first place, Isabel. It's huge. So diversity for me has been a really important one. I think diversity both of culture for me has been a big one, diversity of different economic groups, of different spaces and places, right? Like spaces, especially where entrepreneurship is not discussed at the dining room table. How do we get the word out there? For me, I've done it in a couple of ways. I think doing work like this, where you're able to connect with all different types of groups, like we don't know who, right? Like these
Yeah.
videos may be seen by. That so excites me because I'm like, I never know some young woman who's watching this video who now is like, I could do this. And I'm going to tell them, yes, you can, right? Like get a mentor, find a local program around entrepreneurship, watch every video and all the resources that are on the Sweet website. And yeah, you can totally do it. So I think by volunteering and by giving back in different spaces, I think is critical. And then I'll toss it back at both Sweet and other organizations. Us even raising this conversation, to be frank, I think is a big one, right? Like being very intentional now moving forward about creating diversity and like genuine inclusion. As a person of color in my work environment, I naturally will hire people from all different backgrounds because that's my world. But I get really excited when I see different spaces where they're like, well, no, we need to put this at the forefront and we need to really think about this in a very real and meaningful way. So I think it's just being intentional about it at whatever level of entrepreneurship that you're at. I think that that's where you can make the greatest impact.
Definitely. You have to actually walk the walk.
Oh, yes.
Okay, our last few questions are some fun ones. So the first one is about time travel. If you could go back to the founding either of your company now or as a 16-year-old, either one or both, and give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say?
The founding of my company, I started right after college. I officially got it started probably about 2 or 3 years after I got out of undergrad. I would definitely tell myself back then, right? You don't know what you're doing. And to some degree, I still don't know now, and that's okay. But own that. Own every last minute of that, and don't feel in any way, shape, or form that you don't bring the same thing that others bring to the table and value and the ability to get people to think differently and do the work. So I think it's you're thinking, well, I'm young and I have so much I have to learn, and of course you do, but own every minute of the value that you have, that you can really make a difference, right? Like that you can do really powerful work. So I think showing up that way at a younger age, I can only imagine like what my younger self might have done had I heard that advice earlier on.
That is one of the best pieces of advice I've heard. Thank you for that. And what has been your biggest accomplishment or most satisfying moment as an entrepreneur?
Biggest accomplishment as an entrepreneur. There have been a couple, and I had a really good one, and now I'm like reflecting on another one that I think is probably even more powerful as I step back and own it.
Do both.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's have fun with it. So I think, it's definitely as an entrepreneur, we always grade like the largest contract you ever had and the accomplishment that you made, right? So I think, a couple of my big accomplishments that I've had is I've had the fortune of working with several large groups, whether it's conferences, whether it's, work like I've done at Barnard, where you get the opportunity to create something that we never did before. And you're creating something brand new and creating this new opportunity. So this summer, for example, I worked on my first virtual experience around entrepreneurship education. And we did some crazy ideas, right? That I'm like, but we have to be in person in order to be able to ask questions of customers. And no, you don't. There's ways of doing it, right? So I think that ability to be able to create something new and try out new experiences and doing it in a way where your company is both financially rewarded and you make an impact, those moments I think are like everything in so many ways. But the other one for me that has been really meaningful in the past couple of years, I've done a lot of volunteer work for women entrepreneurs. And the one that continues to be the most meaningful is I will do these roundtables where women will come together and they'll ask questions about their businesses and, have someone like me who's been there, done that, can guide them. Hearing the women come back again after they've implemented one or two of the ideas and hearing what happens to their business, that's powerful. That's powerful. Where you get to see women like really starting to earn significant income. They're really going after the customers that they want and they feel confident and good about it. So I think those moments are the moments that it's right here. Definitely.
That has to be so rewarding. I can't even imagine hearing those success stories.
Oh, you're going to hear them. I totally am challenging anyone watching this video right now that if you're getting advice from watching these videos on Suite that allows you to start the business, that allows you to grow an idea that you have, are you kidding me? You're going to have to write back to Isabel and shout her out and spread love about what Suite has done for that exact reason, because you just never know where people take the idea.
Thank you. And when you do have those big accomplishments, how do you celebrate?
I'm not a good celebrator. I'll own that times 10. You're normally just like, okay, let's go on to the next project. I think what I have very much enjoyed about entrepreneurship, and I think I do celebrate this, is that when I've worked in professional environments, your ability to have time is very structured, right? Like to have free time and to have downtime, it's very, very, very structured. And what I've loved about being an entrepreneur is that you get to create what your schedule looks like. So my way of celebrating a lot of times, I'm not like a party person, and I do love to travel and stuff, but my way of celebrating sometimes is like spending a week where you can just do activities to let the creative juices flow. Right? Like you're not watching a clock, like you have fun activities that you're planning and you just give yourself space and time to let that creative energy out. That's a big way to me to celebrate, because then when you come back to the work again, it's just not work. It's fun. It like, even when it's hard, it makes a difference. It's not that grind, I would say.
Totally. I could not agree more. And I saw on your website you work with both entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. For a little quick vocabulary word, can you describe the difference between those?
Sure. So entrepreneurs are people who decide to start their own company, whether they are owning, let's say, for example, a franchise. You can be an entrepreneur where you buy a model and you actually are able to put that model out there. You can come up with your own idea, like a suite, where you say, hey, this is what I want to put out in the world. Let's see how we can actually put it out and if people are interested in investing in it. An intrapreneur is somebody who's employed by a company, but they're now being charged with the opportunity to help the company grow. And so what typically happens with companies right now is that, in COVID, for good or for bad, I think is probably a perfect example of what happens. Companies very often have a very comfortable way of how they earn money, right? Like they've done it this way, they've always done it this way, and that's the only way that they know how to do it. And you have different events that happen, right? Like different experiences, different things that go on. And for a lot of the founders or the CEOs of companies, they may not have time to take on these new ideas, right? So let's take a restaurant, for example, that, had high-end dining and they never did delivery, right? Like they're just adjusted to people coming in, right? They do large orders for catering and people come in person to interact. And all of a sudden now overnight, they've got to implement a seamless or look at a delivery option for their fine dining. Well, they might have someone on their staff take that entrepreneurial role and be responsible for making that happen and be responsible for what's the technology we need, what are the resources, who are the people, what type of marketing do we need, how do we set up goals around that so that the CEO or the founder or the owner of the company can still kind of keep the wheels rolling on that end. And then this person or team sometimes can actually create something new inside the company that, to be frank, is a new revenue arm for the company.
Super cool. I had no idea that was even a word, so I'm adding that to my vocabulary.
Yes. So you can take the full risk, right? Like it is a huge risk to be an entrepreneur. You can get the full reward and full risk, but you can also do it while getting paid as an employee, right? Where someone says, hey, you take on this new project. And it happens a lot of times. People don't realize it happens without, to your point, without the language there. I know, for example, of a restaurant in New York that they actually created in their company this whole division where they started getting food in grocery stores. You know, they got it canned, they got it bottled. They created this brand new division within their company.
Wow.
That's entrepreneurship, because it wasn't the owner of the company who did it. They actually brought in a cousin, literally. They brought in family members to say, hey, you take over this part of the business. You take over the responsibility for it. We're going to fund it. We're going to give you the resources. You obviously have the brand name, but you don't have to take all the risk, which the entrepreneur normally is the one that has to take. So there's a win-win out of this.
That is so smart. Talk
Yeah,
about
definitely.
improvising. Wow. So, can you talk a little bit about the type of people you choose to work with, or do they kind of choose you? I saw you do a special mother-daughter thing.
Yes, yes. So I have a brand called Mom and Daughters Inc., where I work with both mothers and daughters, and we create businesses. We learn what the process are, what the steps are of, like, how do you market a business? How do you, what does 30 days of a financial cycle look like, where you got to make the decisions on what do you buy? What do you sell? How much do you have left over? So yeah, in terms of whether people are attracted to me or I'm attracted to them, it's both, right? Like, it's totally both. I think the bigger thing to me is like having that entrepreneurial spirit is really what I'm looking for. So you might have experience with running your own business, or you might just say, you know what, I want to know that in my future, that if I need to kind of create my own, I need to go out there and be willing to take the risk and create my own opportunity, or be an entrepreneur, right? Like, take the ideas that I have and do it within a company right now, that I can get my mindset developed to think like that. Because you have to think differently as an entrepreneur. You do things a little bit differently, right? And so I think just those sparks of that entrepreneurial mindset, someone who's listening for opportunity, someone who's willing to take strategic risks, for example, they ask the question why. You know, it's not just we're going to do it the same way we've always done it before. Well, why can't we? Let's test out this new idea. Those are the people that I usually look for when it comes to these opportunities.
Sounds like you have it down, living the life.
Totally. I enjoy it. I mean, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the one-on-one work that I do with people, or the groups, yeah, I mean, that's how it's all about the mindset. And for women in particular, I am determined that we as women own this entrepreneurial mindset, whether you are an employee or whether you are an entrepreneur, because, you know, this time frame right now with COVID to me is the perfect example. There are so many things we're all going to have to pivot on, right? Like, everything is being recreated in front of our eyes. And if you're only able to do things as you always have, and you don't get that mindset of being able to take what's put in front of you, and now how do we create opportunity out of that? I think for a lot of us, we're going to miss out on some really major options. And those of us that can think like that, that's where the money and that's where the future opportunities are going to lie.
Definitely. I think the coronavirus has made many more people into entrepreneurs, maybe without them even knowing it.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah. I'm here for that.
So, my last question is, can you share a funny story from your career?
A funny story from my career. Oh, the moments are hysterical. I think I've had a number of event moments that have been absolutely hysterical, where um, you just everything possibly that can go wrong goes wrong, right? Like, at the same time, and you're kind of like, oh my god, like, why am I here? What the heck just happened? Probably there's like several classic moments that I can think of where you know, I'm trying to set up for an event, and you turn around and everyone's there and they're dressed, and you're still, I mean, I literally have done this where I was up one time for an event. We were going to be on stage at like 11 o'clock, and I got up, no exaggeration, at 5 o'clock that morning to like get myself settled. We were in the hotel and did not even realize, like, it's 10:45 and I'm still downstairs with my literally my bedroom, my pink bedroom slippers on. Everyone's fully dressed
Oh,
and ready to go. And I'm like, whoops. You know, but you just roll with it, right? Like, you just, somebody, can I borrow someone's shoes? Can I grab something, put a shirt on, and let's make this look good? Because you just got to roll with it. Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. You're going to have moments. I mean, you're just going to have moments where you get anything thrown at you, and it's, how do you handle it, right? Like, I prefer to handle it with a laugh, and we'll figure it out on the way down, and have fun with it.
100%. That is a great piece of advice to end on.
Definitely.
And do you have anything else you want to add or any last piece of advice for the girls?
Totally. Don't just listen to these videos, take action. That's the biggest one. It might seem scary. It might seem like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. It's a lot. No, 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 no. Don't just watch, right? Like we're really good watchers and researchers and learner. Take action on it. I shared my story of how I have I mean, I lost every dollar of that vending machine business times 10. Like I will say that out loud because I want you to know that it's okay. It's perfectly fine, right? Like, and as a result, now years later, I have had a best-selling book on Amazon. I've been quoted in the New York Times and ABC and all these different places, and it came because of that first story, right? Like, so many amazing options are in front of you. So just take action on it. Take action on it and share the love back with you, Isabel, so that you get to hear about all the inspiration that you're creating in this process.
Could not agree more. And I hope all the girls share their experiences and successes with me. And just like you got to share, I mean, if that vending machine never happened, you wouldn't have been able to give half the advice today. So
A
thank you.
1000%. Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time and all your thoughts and stories, Maya.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was so good to connect.